Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Actually, this morning I'm here to sound an alarm, to issue a wake-up call to St. Lucia, to remind St. Lucia that we are still in the clutches of a crime wave. And what is most concerning to me and to the United Workers' Party, that it appears that St. Lucia has gone into a lull. We have become numb. We have become accepting of the situation to the extent that we don't seem to even take note or pay heed to what is happening around us anymore. I want to specifically zone in on the aspect of crime as it pertains to homicides. To date, we have the alarming figures of at least 42 homicides. And I said at least because I do not know as we speak if that number has gone up. It seems to be a weekly affair now that we have young people in particular losing their lives in various forms. What has happened is that St. Lucians have become so used to it, it has become so normal as part of our existence that we don't talk about it anymore. We don't make a fuss about it anymore. We seem to pay no heed to the fact that it exists and it continues to happen. I want to in particular call on our government, who have the responsibility to see about our security and our safety. And specifically, the Ministers of Home Affairs and National Security, at whose doorsteps the direct responsibility falls. Let us look at what is happening in St. Lucia today. Our safety is being undermined. And when I say our safety as a society, okay, as a citizenry, our safety is being undermined. Never mind that most of the occurrences of homicides take place among gang rivals. We know that people who are not associated or involved in gangs have perished as a result of these activities. Of course, there is the occasional domestic violence situation, which we have to try to address as well. But let's look at the losses that have already taken place, and we seem to be docile and unconcerned about our safety. That, as I said, has been undermined. Our freedom has been compromised. Our economy is under threat. Now, if that is not sufficient to alarm us, to jolt us, to take cognizance that we are facing a crisis, I do not know what will. And so I'm saying to our government that this is not, what I'm saying is not far-fetched. We have had a criminal-imposed curfew on St. Lucians in recent times. Because when we are forced to close down businesses, when we are forced to close schools, when people are forced to vacate a community by a certain time, that is a curfew in effect imposed by criminals on law-abiding citizens. That is our freedom compromised. We cannot have a situation like this in a democratic, law-abiding country. And what are we hearing from the people who are responsible for ensuring that a situation like that does not occur? Our government. We have heard some talk, and yes, at one point it got to an extremely chaotic situation where in the space of a few days, 7, 8, or 9 people were murdered. And so they took some action. They were jolted into action and brought in the regional security forces and so on. That in itself, as we saw, did not curb the crime situation. We had a little abatement, but even with the presence of the RSS, we had homicides taking place in St. Lucia. When we have social gatherings, festivals, or public functions, we now have to be in fear, okay, of gun violence taking place in our midst, where anyone can end up losing their lives. These are not situations that we should be comfortable with. I asked the question, over the last weekend, we had a number of homicides. Have you heard a word from the Prime Minister? Have you heard a word from the Minister of Home Affairs or the Minister of National Security? And so I'm saying, in light of this situation where it seemed to slowly becoming the norm in St. Lucia to just have situations such as this and we accept it. We cannot become comfortable. We cannot become complacent. We must call on those who are who are charged with the responsibility to do something about it. I have called in the past for the firing of the Minister of National Security, and now I'm renewing that call. So I'm calling on the Prime Minister to look within his cabinet to determine if there's someone who can do better. I do not assume that there's anyone who can do worse, but the Prime Minister has to show that he is taking his responsibility seriously and he is doing what can be done to address the situation by starting off with relieving the Minister of National Security of his portfolio and the Minister of Home Affairs as well. Because quite apart from the disastrous handling of the passport situation by the Minister of Home Affairs, we have not heard a word from her in terms of an approach, a strategy, a plan as to how crime will be tackled by our law enforcement agencies. I know that a number of pronouncements were made in terms of social programs and other financial policies with a view to addressing the crime situation. To date, that has not made a dent on the crime situation. And I understand too that some programs will take time. But in the interim, we are losing lives. And something must be done, and something must be done now, something must be done immediately. We are tired of the talk. We want to see action. As a member of a party that is pro-action, of course, we may be short on talk, but we certainly deliver when we make a promise. And what was promised to St. Lucians by this administration, this current administration, is that they would see about their well-being and their welfare, that they had all the answers, and that they would have done better than the United Workers' Party administration. Well, we are now approaching 2 years of the reign of this administration, and the disaster that we are facing has to be addressed now, for fear that if we allow it to continue, we would have gone so far down into the abyss that there would be no way of regaining our current situation or what previously existed. The United Workers' Party is synonymous, yes, with progress, development, and delivering to the people of St. Lucia. And so we are in a position to call on the government to do better because we know better can be done. We have offered ourselves to provide advice and support, but that has been rejected. And so I say, now is the time for us to see decisive action, and the government can start showing that they're serious by dismissing the Minister of National Security and the Minister of Home Affairs. And let us have a new beginning and see if we can bring those situations under control. Thank you.